approaching numbers in the NFL. So
heart failure. We have new drug therapies. We have 5-ventricular pacemakers.
So why is sudden cardiac death still a problem?
You have to see the patient before we can help them.
Here's a new spin, 0% AP.
Because they are buying into it, they are owning it, right. and they are really, in essence, Jerry, laying the foundation, especially with the youthfulness that this football team has right now.
No question. We're we're a blend of youth, and the part that bothers me is there's not a lot of guys in the middle. We've got a senior group, we've got a young group, yeah. but our numbers in between, we're struggling a little bit.
Mental toughness is another aspect of the game, and I think they're understanding as the weeks fly by, and they'll certainly understand in these next 7 weeks, week in, week out, doesn't matter home or away. We are in the Big Ten right now, but I think that kids are understanding here 5 games in mental toughness as it relates to the bottom line, and that's winning.
And Joe, the way we define mental toughness for our team is playing at the highest level of your ability for the longest period of time. Everyone can go out early in the game and play to their ability because there's no fatigue involved and you're fresh and you can get through it. But in the fourth quarter, can you play at the highest level of your ability? And it's a hard thing to do, and it's a hard thing to train yourself to do because the training comes by practicing hard every day. And that's quite frankly not a lot of fun sometimes to practice hard every day.
And you see with the youthfulness of the football team, and you know, I asked you a couple of weeks ago on the show that, you know, what the big difference is with a 17, 18-year-old kid, you know, coming in and playing Division I football at the level we play. You mentioned speed. That mental toughness, is it something that's innate that players can build on? Is it something that's developed at an early stage, or is it something you have to look at as a head coach at this level and help develop or bring along?
Well, I definitely think you have to help develop and bring along. And I think everyone comes to you at a different level. No different than a guy can come in as a 300-pound bencher and leave as a 500-pound bench presser. Some guys will come in more mentally tough than others, but it's our responsibility to continue to develop it. The interesting thing is we all know how you get stronger in the bench press. You lift 2 or 3 times a week, you're on a certain program. The issue is how you become more mentally tough, and a lot of times that's through practicing hard, moving the barrier back in which you feel like you can compete.
We found it out Saturday, and it's going to be constant, and you'll have a better feel for the Big Ten as the weeks progress now following this bye week coming up. But, too, you kind of likened to a golf swing, and you mentioned you're not very good, and I'm probably worse than you are in the golf swing. But as it relates to the running game, you work on a part of it, and then have it work, have it click, and then move on to the next part.
Right, and there's no question as we get into Big Ten play, I maintain that some things have changed about the Big Ten, but I think one thing that hasn't changed about Big Ten play is you have to be able to stop the run. As much as people talk about how the offenses have changed, to have a successful year in the Big Ten, you have to do at least 2 things. Stop the run and be able to run the football yourself. If you just can run it and can't stop the run, you're not going to be successful, or if it's the other way around.
All right, so the optimum words, regardless if it was Ohio State or if it's going to be Wisconsin, Illinois, or Iowa, whoever, in the 7 weeks remaining. We'll see how the Hoosiers did, and go back to the highlights from the Columbus, Ohio base game. They have kind of increased their stadium now to well over 100,000. Back to Saturday, and the highlights coming ahead. Week 5 on the Indiana football with Gerry DiNardo right after this. And 4,000 plus backed into Ohio Stadium as we go back to action on Saturday. And the Hoosiers, after Ohio State won the toss and deferred, Yamar Washington straight up over left guard for 6 yards. 2nd and 4 at the Indiana 35. A nice slant pass here. Jabron steps up, hits Courtney Roby for 11 yards and a first down. This is the first drive of the ball game. Indiana at the Ohio State 46, 3rd and 2. And a hard run here, but no gain on the play as Darian Scott came in. David Thompson, Indiana, only 5 of 14 on 3rd down conversions for the day. Here's Krenzel now, their quarterback, and down he goes. He rushed up the middle for 6 yards. Donnie Nicky comes up here with a big play, and he busted for 28 yards. That was on a doggone 4th and 2 call there from the Ohio State 28. And then we see Krenzel here on a sideline route to Claret, their fine freshman, and great defense there by Hernandez Jones as on a 3rd and 3. That was out goes Ohio State, and Indiana stopping them. So we're seeing some good defense here early on. The putt by Ryan Hamry, and 36 yards. But here's a personal foul, and that hurt. 15 yards, and that's going to take a good field position up to midfield. And Claret right here. Good play by John Kerr, the youngster from Cleveland, Ohio. He had a big day Saturday, the outstanding freshman linebacker. Krenzel again to the air. Claret slips a couple of tackles. He's really tough to bring down up around the shoulders. You got to tackle him low. And, well, they used 12 plays and Claret 10 times, and they go on top with a short run, 7-0, as we pick up action right there. Sideline pass to Brian Lewis, good for 10 yards. That's the end of the first quarter. We go to the second. Nice catch there. Jabron Hamden up to Glenn Johnson for 20 yards. And then right back at the Indiana 47, here's Brian Lewis coming in and rushing up the middle for 11 yards. And that will set up Brian Robertson's longest field goal of his career. It might be noted here that Brian, from 40 yards plus this year, is 3 for 3. Banged that one home from 49 yards, and it's 7-3. Play faking to Claret, and Krenzel goes down. A nice play by Jody Clemens there on 1st down and 10. But bad field position after the Hoosiers had the punt of the way. Ohio State makes it 14-3, and you see here this play that set up that touchdown. Jenkins on a 27-yard catch. But the Hoosiers down by 11. They go 80 to get close. And here is Travis Haney on this little reverse for 14 yards before he's finally popped out of bounds. Indiana 1st down and 10 at their own 47-yard line. And this play is getting to be one in the playbook right here. Look at this catch by John Pinozzo, the outstanding freshman fullback. Down the sidelines he goes, 41 yards, and that will set up this outstanding play. And keep in mind, from the 17, this is 3rd and 15. Jabron looking over the middle, and there is Tyke Spencer, the young freshman, his first career touchdown. Brian added the extra point, 14-10. Here we have another penalty that led, and we saw one earlier give Ohio State field position. And here is Chris Gamble returning this kickoff by Brian Robertson. To the outside he goes, and Antonio Watson got nailed on that particular penalty, and that led to a late touchdown, another run by Claret that gave Ohio State the lead, as you see there in our first half summary. Pick-up action in the second half. Ohio State drives 86 yards to take a 28-10 lead. Here's a gutsy call, Jabron Hamden, 4th and 1 from the Indiana 29. He sneaks it for a couple of yards, so the Hoosiers certainly not giving up here, down 18 points. But here are a couple of passes, just too bad. Jabron with a lot on the ball. Glenn Johnson out in front of his man, dropped the football. Remains to be seen whether or not he could have progressed upfield with it, but you have to catch it first. And here's a too-bad play, and Tyke Spencer, usually reliable hands, and he had problems there. And then they block a punt, and they go up 35-10. We pick up action in the 4th. Tommy Jones coming in, and Tommy, a pretty credible effort. He hadn't played for a while, you know, and there he hits a nice play. Tyke Spencer for 22 yards. This is 1st down and 10. The Hoosiers trying to get on the board here. A bullet pass caught by Stephen Anthony. 2 weeks in a row, the big tight end has latched onto a pigskin. That good for 21, and then over the middle, and the pass and run, Courtney Roby. That was his 2nd touchdown of the year as he somersaults into the end zone. The Hoosiers do go 80 yards in 8 plays. That was Tommy Jones' 5th touchdown of the year. We bring up a point of the 45 players that played. 29 of them were either freshmen or sophomores. And after the game, Coach Gerry DiNardo, as we mentioned just a minute ago, field position, as key as anything, the storyline to this one.
Well, I think anytime you look at a field position chart, you know, numbers are going to bear out that there's a increased chance of scoring the closer to the opponent's goal line. So that obviously had a lot to do with our penalties, which gave them good field position at times, really hurt us. And I told this to the team, anytime you have those personal foul type of issues near the other sideline, it's usually going to go against you. And that happened a couple times. But in our players' defense, I must tell you that I wanted to be really tough and really aggressive today, so I share some of that responsibility on some of those personal fouls. Not that it's right, but we wanted our team to come in here tough, and if that meant we were going to be on the edge a little bit, that's okay. I'd rather work backwards from there than come in here and be intimidated, and then next time we come have to address that issue. So I take some of the responsibilities, but I think the field position, part of it were the foolish penalties.
We don't doubt the billions. It's the serve part we have trouble with. It's real.
Steak and Shake, famous for steak burgers.
What was the composer thinking when he wrote this?
How do you take a company public?
What does the human genome look like?
What defines peak performance?
How has information technology changed the way people live and work?
Can you really teach creativity?
Indiana University.
Amazing.
Colorado Steakhouse cordially invites you to indulge in the new dawn of Colorado cuisine. Kick off your Sunday mornings with our NFL Prime Rib Buffet, or try our new lunch and dinner menus with exciting new entrees and daily lunch specials. Then let us bring the kitchen to you. As the premier on-site catering service in Southern Indiana, Colorado Catering is waiting to make your next event an unforgettable dining experience. So come witness the new dawn of Colorado cuisine and feel the power of fresh food. Call now to reserve your ticket for the Oak and Bucket Tent Party.
Welcome back, everyone, to Indiana Football with Gerry DiNardo. Last week, discussion with one of the greatest players to ever don an Indiana uniform, three-time All-American George Talafero. You got to remember that 1945 championship season was accomplished with no seniors. And while we draw no parallels with Gerry DiNardo's first Indiana football team, self-sacrifice, conditioning, self-motivation were all keys way back then. They are now, as George in part 2 tells us 54 years ago.
All I did was what I was told to do. But I brought to that championship team one thing that I held every athlete accountable for. And that was, you had to be the best conditioned athlete that you could be. I never forgive people for going into their particular sport, I don't care what it is, and say, I'm going to work myself into shape. You're not going to do it. You're kidding yourself.
Right.
And I have seen it throughout my lifetime. But let's concentrate on just 45. The guys who came in on that team were ready to listen to Bo McMillan and do what they were told to do in the best way that they knew how possible.
Of that year, you were 5-0-1 in the league. You didn't play your home Big Ten game until the great finale at the old 10th Street Stadium and that great shell lacking of Purdue in the final game of the year. But you went out on the road, testy games, the tie at Northwestern, the one-touchdown victory against Illinois. You opened up the season at Michigan. All of your games were on the road in the league.
But that didn't mean anything. Because remember, Joe, you're talking to a number of guys who were freshmen, who had never played We didn't know any better. We didn't know anything about do this on the road and do this at home. No, 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 no. Bo McMillan asked me the night before the Michigan game if I would change the number on my jersey. And he wanted to know if I was superstitious. I told him no. He said, well, I had been issued number 43.
Right.
He said, would you wear number 44? I said, Coach, it doesn't make me any difference. No, it doesn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
It never meant a thing to me until I was much older. That Bo McMillan saw a lot more in what George Taliaferro could become than I ever imagined that I could be.
It was too bad back then you couldn't extend your season and represent the league.
That's correct.
But you gave that man that meant so much to you the greatest thrill of his collegiate life.
But Joe, think of what he gave to me. This is what I always retort. The man gave me the opportunity to be whatever I could possibly imagine being. And he was right there, along with the guys that I named earlier.
The discipline, the habits, his approach. Your thoughts on Gerry, his staff, taking over a Hoosier football team, trying to turn the corner, right itself, and bring it back to prominence?
Joe, if the kids that Gerry DiNardo has on this team will buy into, and I use that phrase excitedly, if they will buy into and listen to him and then do the very best that they can to get themselves in shape, they can have the remainder of a great first year for Gerry DiNardo in football at Indiana University. See, I'm one of the few people who do not buy into the fact that we don't have a rich history.
Gotcha.
If 57 years isn't history, then you might see me for the next 57 years because I won't be any older than the 18-year-old kid that I was in 1945 when I came here.
Well, Gerry, indeed an interesting individual. I mean, the stories, I could sit and listen to him talk for hours, but inspirational. You know, you go back to when he was a young kid, Gary Roosevelt High School, the sacrifices that he made, and how it all evolved into one terrific football season and football program.
They may not have had any seniors, Joe, but they certainly had some leadership. I found this piece fascinating, and as you know, I took parts of it when he talks about conditioning and when he talks about how he demanded everybody be in conditioning for the season. I took that part and showed it to our team the Thursday before the Central Michigan game because I find it fascinating when the very best athletes talk about things that have nothing to do with ability, but the things that we call no talent. George was always in great shape, not because he was a great athlete. He was a great athlete, but George was always in great shape because he wanted to be in great shape. And there's no reason anyone on our team can't be in great shape, regardless of the level of their ability.
And when we come back, yet more letters from football fans on email, on the website, and Coach DiNardo will be back to answer some of those, and we'll continue along and have more. It's a bye week for Indiana coming ahead this week. We're back on the show with more right after these messages.
Which came first, the steak burger or the customer? I can't make the steak burger until the customer orders it. And yet, paradoxically, if there was no steak burger, what brought the customer here in the first place?
Steak burgers. They order them. He cooks them. And I serve them.
Steak and Shake, famous for steak burgers.
It's easy to stay in touch with your favorite Indiana University team. For the latest information on your Indiana Hoosiers, visit iuhoosiers.com. iuhoosiers.com is your one-stop shop for merchandise, game schedules, press releases, and ticket information for all of Indiana's 24 varsity sports. You can call us toll-free 866-IU-SPORTS for tickets, game information, and catalog merchandise. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you at the next game.
The day I got the letter in the mail that said that I had a full scholarship to IU and out-of-state school for me was the best day I remember. I get to train with the coach I wanted to, train with the team that was very supportive, fun-loving, great to be with. I was so happy and just thankful that I could go to IU. I would love to come back and help contribute to other athletes.
Make a difference in the life of an Indiana University student athlete. Call the Varsity Club today at 855-0866.
Hoosier fans, get all your cream and crimson apparel featuring the Block IU logo at the Varsity Shop, the official store for IU athletics. We have 2 locations in Bloomington, at the corner of Kirkwood in Indiana and in Assembly Hall. Buy your cream and crimson apparel at the Varsity Shop and help support the athletic programs at IU. Plus, you can still get all of the Big Ten Championship and Final Four apparel at the Varsity Shop. Shop online at IUHoosiers.com or call the store at 1-866-IU-SPORTS. The IU Varsity Shop, the official store for IU athletics.
Welcome back, everyone. Indiana football with Gerry DiNardo following the Ohio State game and with the bye week upon us. And, Coach, some more letters. I'm real impressed with the level of the questioning here. And we get one from Jonathan in Muncie. When you go about setting up your defense, Coach, do you play a certain defense that fits your basic philosophy, or do you adapt what you can run defensively to the personnel that you have?
Well, Jonathan asked a question that's big part of coaching, and what we've done here in not only our defense, our offense, and our kick game is we've come in with a philosophy of what exactly we'd like to do in a perfect world. But once you get on the field and once you get to know the strengths and the weaknesses of your players, you have to adjust to them. And we always say is whatever we're putting up on the chalkboard isn't as important as who we're coaching every day. So if we have to change our ideas and change our defenses, our offenses, to fit our people, that's certainly more important than being so stubborn on what we want to do that we don't adjust.
All right, Jonathan. Hope the coach clarified that and explained that. And again, on the website, www.iuhoosiers.com, click onto the coach's questions. And Jerry from North Judson, Andrew, I'm delighted to see the number of fumbles that our defense has caused this year. Have you made a conscious effort in practice to try and cause those TOs?
Joe, once a week we have a turnover circuit. Our defensive coaches divide up into 4 groups, and we rotate everybody on defense. One is stripping the ball, one is running down the sideline and the ball's bouncing, batting it back into your player, into one of your other players. One guy holds one ball carry up, and the other one comes up and tries to rip it out. So we work on it at least once a week in a circuit form, and then during team periods during the week we also work on it.
Well, you sit, and again, thanks, Andrew, for the question there. You sit with the bye week, and we just briefly touched on it, I believe, last week, but you're going to be busy, and an opportunity, really, with the bye week, and no opponent, obviously, to do a little traveling.
After the Ohio State game, 7 of the 10 of us are allowed to go out by NCAA rules. So 7 of our coaches, myself included, I'm going to be in the state of Indiana. I've got 2 or 3 stops I'm going to make on Monday, and then I'm back in the office on Tuesday. But the other coaches are going to go, most of them to junior college. We're in Arizona, we're in Kansas. We're basically all over the country trying to make sure we have a handle for the junior college prospects that we might or might not be interested in. And then we'll come back on, as a staff, we'll come back on Wednesday after the Ohio State game and start getting to work on Wisconsin.
I think you're going as far west as Arizona, aren't you?
We are. We're all over the country.
Mississippi, that way. So the Hoosiers sit with the idle week. There will be obviously work to be done, and Wisconsin coming up a week from this coming week as the Hoosiers return home. Actually, it will be the home Big Ten opener when Barry Alvarez brings his Badgers to Bloomington. For Coach Gerry and the staff and the Hoosiers, have yourselves a great week, and we'll see you next week on Indiana Football with Gerry DiNardo. 3 days off. Amid the hope, the Hoosiers now are fresher and a little bit healthier as they ready for the next 7 Big Ten opponents starting next Saturday morning with the Wisconsin Badgers. A week to rest and heal. A week, too, to catch up on a little recruiting for the football staff. One of our items for discussion is we welcome you to Indiana Football with Gerry DiNardo. Hi again, everyone, and welcome to Indiana Football with Gerry DiNardo, Joe Smith, the coach. And, well, Gerry, a week off, a bye week, and I don't know, it's pretty much commonplace among college football teams. We shared the day off Saturday with Michigan and Michigan State within the Big Ten, for instance. But, you know, some time to heal, some time to rest. And, well, you know, I know the squad obviously took advantage of the time off and, you know, just rested for the most part.
It's pretty common nowadays to have a week off. I think we're fortunate to have it right where we do, this week or next week. And most teams have it at about this time of year. What we've done, Joe, is we gave them Sunday off the day after the Ohio State game. We gave them Monday and Tuesday off. We came back on Wednesday and we practiced Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in what we call light bulbs, helmet, shoulder pads, and their thigh boards, but no pants, just to take a little bit of the equipment off. And then we gave them Saturday off, and then Sunday will be a full padded practice as if we would do it, same thing as we do on a Tuesday. And then we'll taper a little bit sooner than we ordinarily would because we've had the extra week to prepare.
Well, you got 7 big ones, obviously, starting with Wisconsin Saturday, Iowa. As a matter of fact, we look at the schedule now. 4 of the 7 games going to be at home Memorial Stadium.
It'll be good to be back home. The travel, we haven't done so well on the road. We're 2-0 at home. I think any team always loves to play at home, and this will be our first Big Ten game in Memorial, so we're excited about it.
And again, a reminder, the early kick time, brunch with the Hoosiers, that's an 11:10 kick on Saturday against the Badgers, and then the Iowa Hawkeyes come calling as well the following week, and they've been making some headlines within the league. Gerry, we go back to the Ohio State game. Obviously a ball game where there were some positives, and let's just kind of look at it offensively and defensively, and we might as well start with one big statistic: no turnovers, no interceptions for Jabron Hamden offensively.
If you don't consider the block punt a turnover, which I think we have to, because it was perhaps more costly than just turning the ball over. I think anytime you get a punt block, especially in your own end of the field, you have to consider the turnover. But the glass being half full, no turnovers by the offensive unit after we've had 4-4, 4-3, and now none, certainly was progress. I thought Jabron perhaps played his best game. He did fumble the ball one time when he was scrambling in trouble. We were lucky to recover. We've got to do a little better job in that position.
We look at 2 words and an aspect of the game that's so vital, and that's field position. I think they scored 31 points on 5 possessions from the 50 in, and, well, whether you play at home or on the road or caliber of team, it's not going to get it done.
Joe, we talked as a team, our first team meeting back after the Ohio State game, which was Wednesday, about field position. And I think our players have done a good job understanding some of the concepts that we've thrown out there for them and asked them to take ownership of some of the concepts. And this week, field position's a critical one because it affects everybody on the team. An offense can have an impact on field position by not going 3 downs and out.
Right.
A big NFL stat is how many times the offense is out there, 7 plays or more, whether they score or not. Right. The Ravens proved this a couple years ago, winning the Super Bowl. So our offensive guys have to understand that 3 downs and out kills us in field position. Every player that is on a special team understands that every time a special team takes the field, drastic change in field position or something's going to happen to the scoreboard. So they have to understand it if they're on a special team. And then, of course, defense, when you do have someone that starts out in their own 20, 5 players or less getting them out is going to have a serious impact on field position.
Picking that up on that comment that you just made about the special teams, up until that Ohio State game, give us an overview on how the special teams per se is performed.
Well, I don't think there's any question that Ohio State was probably our poorest outing. We had a punt faked on us and we had a punt blocked, and I don't know that we have to go any further than that. Right. Some of the other things were okay, but when you have those 2 things happen, that's pretty serious. I take responsibility for that. Those 2 plays are something that I've got to get fixed, and we've spent quite a bit of time with them. But that's not very good coaching or playing. We've got to get that fixed.
Gerry, we looked out of the booth on Saturday when we played Ohio State over in Columbus, and with the travel squad being what it was, I think you played 45 in the game. 29 were freshmen or sophomores, and I know the search continues for these kids that, hey, they're giving you the effort, in practice, and they're all just colliding for as much playing time as they can get here.
And there's something good about playing young people, there's no question, but only if they make progress, Joe. We don't want to be sitting here 2 or 3 years from now saying the same thing, that we're still playing young players. And it's not automatic that these young guys will get better. Nothing's automatic in this game. So we're giving some young people an opportunity to build some experience and become better players. But I can assure you, it's not automatic. We could be playing a lot of freshmen and not really getting all that much done. So we've got to keep the pressure on them and not maybe be so excited at the fact that they're playing. We better make sure that they're making progress.
Well, of course, some notes and quotes looking to Wisconsin, and of course Iowa on, and as we mentioned, the home field for the Hoosiers for the next 7 at Memorial Stadium. We'll be back to have more following the bye week. The Hoosiers enjoyed yesterday, and we'll have more on the show. And stick with us. We'll be back right after these messages. Inductees included Patrick Devine, a 3-year wrestling letterman from 1932 through 1934. Devine, a former NCAA champion. Bob Kennedy, a 2-time Olympian who ran cross country and track from 1988 through 1992. The All-American won 20 Big Ten championships individually and 4 national crowns in his specialties of cross country, indoor, and outdoor track. From Lynn Loring's tennis program, Kelly Mulvihill and Stephanie Reese, both 4-year letter winners and captains of their respective squads. Kelly performed for Coach Loring from 1986 through 1989, and Stephanie from 1989 through 1992. Also inducted, former Hoosier football coach Bill Mallory. 13 years on the job, 6 bowl trips, including 2 bowl championships. IU's all-time winningest coach.
You know, this evening, as I accept this honor, I'm very humble about receiving it, because as I looked at our program, it was a people program. That's really what I wanted to see, that a lot of people involved. When you say that you win with people, you succeed with people, and I was blessed with quality people. I was just a part of the program. I looked at us as a team. It's one thing I didn't tolerate was eyes. As fine a football player as Anthony Thompson was, I never ever had to address Anthony about being team, because he was team, as everybody else was. My team. Great respect for my team. They were a group of young men that were comprised of what I wanted to see in an individual, and that was attitude. I think that's so important in an individual, is attitude. Sure, ability is important. You don't sell that short. But I've been around people that had ability that didn't succeed because they didn't have attitude. And I say this maybe in a bragging fashion, but my team had attitude. I was very proud of the players. The self-pride, the workout ethic that they had. They were competitors. They had a toughness to them. They wanted to excel. I'm not saying that there were times I didn't have to gig them, but that's part of maturity and growing up. But they were a great group of young men to work with. People who ask me today, what do you miss most about coaching? And I'll tell you first and foremost, was I miss the relationship that I had with my players. They were a great group of young men. I was proud of them, too, academically. Sure, maybe they could have gotten better grades at times, but I think they matured and realized the importance of education, because our #1 goal was to attain an education and graduate. And I can say this, again in a bragging fashion, if those young men stayed with us the 4 years of their eligibility, very few of them that didn't graduate. A great group of young men that I'm very proud of, and probably even more proud of today, as they were winners with us back then. They're accomplishing today, and there's winners today in everyday life. And so in closing, I just want to say this, that it's certainly in the 13 years that I was at Indiana University, I felt so fortunate to be a part of this university and involved in a program that I feel so strong about. You know, I'll tell you, and I'm going to stand up here and tell you this, but you know, I think when they talk down the IU football program, it's like talking down about my family, because I sincerely have a strong passion about IU football. It's a winnable program. And granted, right now, we're struggling some. But stay committed, stay supportive, be positive, and I'll guarantee you, good days will come. Thanks for honoring me this evening.
And then evaluate them, and that's as key as anything. And I guess if we're looking at geographic locations, Indiana's as good a place to start as any.
Joe, it is, and I think that the cornerstone of our recruiting, and I mean, we all feel this way, starts with Indiana. And I mean, there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, one, because there's some quality football players here. Two, the loyalty that comes from having young men come from your state that play for the, state university and that kind of thing. And you know, to be honest with you, I don't know if you know this, but last year in the BCS bowl games, out of the 8 teams, 3 of those teams had starting quarterbacks from Indiana. And so it just tells you there's a lot of quality players here, and we got to do a good job of bringing everybody together and getting those kids to come to IU.
Brian, before we talk and get into the specifics, geographics set aside and, bringing in a new staff and what have you, they are familiar with different sectors of the United States. Do you try to then send those coaches into those areas that have some familiarity with the schools, the coaches, the high school coaches and what have you?
Joe, I think you do that to a certain degree. I mean, it obviously wouldn't be the only thing that you would, criteria you would use, but yes, there are guys that come that have a background, say, in New Jersey or maybe in North Carolina or Ohio, that obviously Ohio would be proximal to us, but New Jersey wouldn't. So, so would you allow that young man to work in New Jersey to bring some of those kids? Sure, if those ties are strong. But overall, geography plays a large role in this, and there's going to be a certain there's a certain dynamic of having kids from the Midwest play for IU. So while we'll use those contacts, those won't obviously be the only criteria that we use. That'll just be a part of the process.
There are rules and regulations, obviously, and, there are open periods, dead periods, live periods, and then the big day being that first Wednesday in February, National Letter Signing Day. Explain that to the folks and how that works and what's allowable, as we go through a calendar year.
Okay. Well, if you start with Signing Day, which is usually the first Wednesday in February, after that, and start looking at the next class, all through the spring, and through the summer and through the following fall up until December 1, you get what they call evaluation opportunities, where you can actually go to the school, look at their transcripts, watch them practice. There can be no contact with that prospect, but that's basically what happens from the last signing day, if you will, up until December 1. And through that, there's phone calls that you get to make once a week at times, and a lot of mail goes out and that kind of thing. But December 1 starts what we call a contact period, which is actually where we can go out once a week and sit down with the young man, the young prospect and his parents and talk to them and actually get to know them. And then that period runs until basically until February when we have signing day. And there's some dead period opportunities in there around Christmas where they say you can't do anything off campus, so all you can do is maybe make a phone call, that kind of thing.
I know over at the complex, you have a gigantic big board, and you obviously keep track, and the folks that work underneath you daily, and as the weeks go by, with a lot of names.
Yeah, Joe, we start off with about between 11 and 12,000 names of young men who are going into the last part of their junior year, and will be seniors, that following fall. And you go from about that, say, 11,500, I think is about where we were this year, to get that down to a workable pool of about 300. And our goal would be to, from February 5th, say, with that large pool, to get it down to around 300, 350 by, say, May 1 or June 1, right in that, we have exact times, but for the sake of this conversation, in that time frame, and then we'll bring those down to actually signing 25 kids that following February.
Well, we mentioned Brian right at the top, and he wears many hats: assistant head coach, wide receivers coach, director of recruiting. But your position coach with the wide receivers, we're early on in the Big Ten, 7 rugged weeks left of Big Ten competition. But just an overview and a thought or two on how your position, the wide receivers, are emerging, with Glenn getting some company now with competition, and you need that, obviously.
Well, I think, Joe, that, at times we've shown some real development and maturity, and at times we're still making fundamental routine mistakes that obviously keep us from being a great unit. But the kids work hard. They're a good quality bunch of young men. Tyke Spencer, one of the true freshmen, come in and really added some competition to position. He's been a great third down receiver for us. But I think the guys that you mentioned, everybody's trying to step up to the plate. Our work habits are improving. I'd like to see us be more consistent because we're not consistent and we get tired and we make errors and that kind of thing. But overall, as a group, I'm pleased that at least we're heading in the right direction. By no means are we anywhere close to being there yet,
No.
but I think we have a good, promising future at that position.
Well, you get a lot of the effort, and that's the bottom line right there. Brian, thanks for taking time out, being on the show. And as we continue our recruiting theme on Indiana football with Gerry DiNardo, we'll have our email questions for the coach and also a peek ahead to that early start time on Saturday, 11:10 kick with the Wisconsin Badgers. More right after these messages.
Stadium this fall, including food, friends, tailgating, and great college football. Show your support for the Cream and Crimson. Purchase your Indiana football tickets online at iuhoosiers.com or call the Indiana Hoosiers Athletic Ticket Office toll-free 866-IU-SPORTS. Indiana football in the Big Ten, a tradition since 1900.
Welcome back, everyone, to Indiana Football with Gerry DiNardo. As we prefaced right at the start of the show, kind of a recruiting-oriented type show with Indiana having the idle bye week, Jerry. And I know Coach Cullen was out immediately on the road after the Ohio State game, and then you and your coaches hit the road pretty good earlier part of this week.
Joe, by NCAA rule, 7 of the 10 of us, meaning the 9 full-time assistants and myself, 7 of the 10 of us are allowed to be on the road at any one time, no more. You can have less, obviously. So 7 of us went out Monday. I was in the state of Indiana. I came back, and Mo Moriarty went out on Tuesday and did some in-state recruiting.
And Coach Brian McNeely giving us some insight on how things are assembled recruiting-wise that you just saw. And, you know, Jerry, we talk about it. We have a couple of letters to the coach, and we thank Mark and Kim Lefebvre. Are there any restrictions, Jerry, in the number of scholarships you can give out in 1 year? And how do you hope to go about boosting your club to 85 scholarships versus 65? Will it take several years?
It's a very appropriate question. In fact, there's a meeting this week, Joe, within the Big Ten to discuss the concept of over-signing. Presently, you cannot sign more than 25 in any given year, and you can't have more than 85 on your team at any one time. The SEC, the Big 12, and the Pac-10 allow the football coaches to over-sign. In other words, if you have 20 seniors leaving, you could sign more than 20 as long as you never go over 85. In the Big 10, you can never replace more than your seniors. So what happens in the Big 10 is we're usually under 85. We started the season with 65. We were 20 under. And so we're hoping for Indiana's sake and for all of the Big Ten's sake that the faculty reps pass this new rule.
One other question, too, given the limit, Jerry, of 85 scholarship players, a letter from Jim Martin of Indianapolis. If you started with a blank piece of paper, Jerry, what would your ideal scholarship roster look like? By scholarship roster, he means X number of quarterbacks, running backs, linebackers, and so on.
I think right away you'd start at 2 deep. You would take all your positions, offensively and defensively, and start at 2 deep, so you'd be at 44 in a hurry. Then you'd have to look at the single positions, Joe, center. You need 3 or 4 centers because you can't move a right center to left center. You can move a right guard to left guard. Then you'd go to tight ends. You need 2 or 3 tight ends for short yardage situations. Then you'd go to wide receivers. You would need 3 or 4 wide receivers because of 3 wide receiver sets, 4 wide receiver sets. So right away you'd go 2 deep in every position, and then you would take those single positions, nickel back. You may have a specialist pass rusher. You'd have a punter, maybe 2 on scholarship. You'd have a kicker, maybe 2 on scholarship. So you'd be surprised how fast you'd fill up the 85.
Well, we thanks Jim Martin for that question for the coach. And again, iuhoosiers.com and click on the email questions for Coach Gerry DiNardo. Well, Jerry, as we mentioned, 4 games at home of the next 7 lie ahead. Wisconsin, Barry Alvarez's bunch on Saturday morning.
Joe, we've looked at it the second half of the season, obviously wanting to make a run. I mean, we feel like we've made progress. I've said this over and over. From the Tuesday prior to Kentucky, I feel like our morale has been good. I feel like the great majority of our guys have bought into what we're doing. And if I could say this cautiously, maybe, I don't think we have any problems other than the technical parts of the game. And the second half of the season, now that we're used to one another, now that the expectations have been laid out, the players know how we coach, we know how they play. Now, if we're going to make a run the second half of the season, we need to improve technically. Everybody's footwork, securing the football, not having a punt block, those type of things. We're no longer a new program. Everyone knows the routine. Now it's up to every coach and every player to improve in the technical side of the game. And Wisconsin, obviously, will be our first test.
And really, as you mentioned, you're getting your feet wet, so to speak, within the Big Ten itself early on, this being game number 2. And, you know, week in and week out, doesn't matter if you play on the road. I mean, just what you said, if you don't execute, if you don't play well, take care of things you have to do well, then it's going to be long Saturdays.
And you don't have to have had to coach in the Big Ten to know Wisconsin. I mean, Barry Alvarez is the dean of the Big Ten coaches. If you look at the Big Ten media guide, he's the only one listed there that's coached over 10 years. He's been to the Rose Bowl several times. He's done an unbelievable job. They're a big, physical football team. They're one of the best teams in the country. And so even though I haven't been in the Big Ten, I've known about Wisconsin.
Well, he'll know plenty about them Saturday as the game progresses. Don't forget the early kick, 11:10, Memorial Stadium, as the Hoosiers open up a 2-game homestand at Memorial Stadium with the Badgers at 11:10, followed by Iowa next week. That's it for the show this week. For Coach Gerry, his staff, and for the Hoosiers, have yourselves a great week. Joe Smith, we'll see you next week on Indiana Football with Gerry DiNardo.
And hold up for that long.
And you get the feel, too, Coach, that, you know, it's coming. It's like knocking rust off after being dormant for a while. It takes a while to implement the philosophy. The offensive line, for example, we talk about consistency, and you noted this to us earlier in the week. Not to make any excuses, but, you know, there have been a few linemen that have been missing because of various things, injuries, obviously, and boy, that just cuts out the continuity, the flow of how you want things done in practice.
There's a couple timing issues on offense. One is the obvious one I think that most fans know, and that's the quarterback and receiver. You hear oftentimes that the quarterbacks and receivers are working together preseason, and they're in sync, and they can kind of feel each other. The other sync is the offensive line, and that's really one of the things we've missed the most. Joe, I don't know that we've had the same offensive line practice 2 days in a row, let alone play 2 games in a row.
Jabron Hamden came in second half of the Utah game, and it's obviously not fair to critique him. I know you want to let him, under different circumstances, get the real feel for the game from the get-go, which obviously you received Saturday down in Lexington.
Well, Jabron's going to start against Kentucky, obviously, and he deserves it. Tommy and Jabron were very close coming out of camp. In fact, Jabron started camp better than Tommy, and Tommy finished camp better than Jabron, and that's why we started Tommy. But both these quarterbacks have been very similar and very close since our arrival here January 8th. And it's fitting and deservingly so for Jabron to start the Kentucky game, and by the time this show airs, we'll all know how he played.
You know, defensively, again, we talk about the possession time, the number of plays that the defense had to play last Saturday night in Salt Lake City. But generally, Gerry, your overview after a couple of games, I think sometimes in the early part of the season, numbers get distorted. You know, this defense is not going to allow 40 points in the ball game. I mean, I don't think that. I don't think you do. Tim Kish, I don't think he does.
The thing that we have to probably do the best on defense from this point on is stop the breakout plays. We'll hang in there, and then we'll give up a big play. So that's something our defense really needs to work on. Other than that, I think we've made some progress on defense. Offensively, no consistency, no 1st and 10 production. I don't see our offense at the point yet where it's a very precise, very attentive to detail type of offense. And that's really what the West Coast offense is. So those have been 2 points of focus that we've had since camp started, but especially the week going into the Kentucky game.
Well, 2-game long road trips to Salt Lake City and Lexington, Kentucky. We'll glance back to Saturday and recapture some of the headlines made as IU battled the Kentucky Wildcats before a sellout crowd at Commonwealth Stadium in the Bluegrass State. We'll have more Indiana football with Gerry DiNardo. Stay tuned. We're coming right back. Back to Commonwealth Stadium Saturday night. Severe weather rolling through the Lexington area delayed the start of the game 26 minutes, but the Hoosiers got rolling. They had the ball on the first possession, 11 plays, and there's Yamar Washington, 23-yard scamper on a 2nd down and 6 call. And Hamden now, Gibran throws complete here over to Courtney Roby for 17 yards. The Hoosiers, as I say, had the football 4 minutes plus and ran 11 plays, but a field goal attempt of 34 yards missed by Brian Robertson. Kentucky has scored twice. It is 14-0. Nice play here over the middle. Chris Taylor, good for 14 yards and a 1st down. Indiana driving right now at their own 37-yard line, and the deep ball being thrown by Gibran, complete to Courtney Roby, 53 yards. However, Hamden went back to pass a couple of plays later and fumbled the football. That lightning delay, 32 minutes, and I tell you, when Indiana came out defensively, they were jacked up. We're going to see a series of plays here. Penner is going to be stopped here for no gain on the play. Russ Richardson making a nice play. Here's Hernandez Jones along with Joe Gonzalez and a few playmates. Indiana did a good job after they adjusted following that lightning delay. Here's an interesting call, 3rd and short. Penner fumbles the football forward. Indiana did get a break there because the ball was placed back, and Kentucky had to punt. Lorenzen in a shotgun formation and looking down the field. Ball was nearly tipped and nearly picked off by another true freshman, Will Lumpkin. So Indiana on the throes of holding Kentucky scoreless for 32 minutes during the 2nd and 3rd quarters, and this is real solid football play here. And there you see again Hernandez Jones and Will Lumpkin. And again here, Penner on the screen and just jersey tackled. Good pursuit to the ball, and that's exactly what Tim Kish and Gerry DiNardo wanted to see. Here's a nice run again by Yamar, breaking a couple of tackles and busted that up for a gain of 18. Leading to the field goal. Indiana needed to get something, and that was a high snap, but Hamden did a great job there. There's Brian Robertson kicking that 46-yard field goal, which to date is his career best. As you can see, Indiana with good total offense. Washington working on a good first half, and Indiana still in the hunt despite the fact that only 1 of 9 on 3rd down conversions. Moving on into the 2nd half now, Indiana again trying to establish Yamar Washington. In Indiana's first 2nd half possession, Washington carried 7 of the first 9 plays here off guard for 7. We'll see an Indiana 1st and 10 at the Hoosier 47-yard line, and again, good blocking up front. And again, Yamar for a gain of 6. Now, mixing it up a bit, Gibran, 3-step drop over the middle. Tyke Spencer took a nice hit, held on to the football, 1st down and 10. And now long distance being dialed up here. This combination worked last game. It works again this game. Glenn Johnson, 66 yards down the sideline, and the Hoosiers close the gap to 14-10 as they go 5 plays, 84 yards. Now, more good defense. Herman Fowler got a chance to play on Saturday night. Here's a loss of 4. Good defensive play, and that sets up this next defensive play of the year so far, with Indiana trailing 14-10. Lorenzen in the pocket, stepping up, and look who's there. Joe Gonzalez, and he's off and gone. 36 yards, and Indiana grabbing the lead after trailing 14-0. 17 straight points, and the celebration in the end zone, Indiana leading it. But this was too bad. Look at Penner now. This was on a 2nd and 4 call from the Kentucky 39, breaking tackle after tackle, 55 yards, and that's how the 3rd quarter came to an end. And unfortunately, that also set up a Kentucky go-ahead touchdown on the first play of the 4th. There's good defense there. Damian Jones coming in as Lorenzen. Kentucky had a lot of problems. They were only 1 of 7 in 3rd down conversions in the 2nd half. More of Yamar Washington here off center, and a gain of about 7. In the pocket, stepping up. Look at Tyke Spencer. He had a good ball game. The young freshman receivers coming to his own, and Gerry DiNardo looking for that 3rd receiver behind Johnson and Roby. And again, on the ground, 21-17 Kentucky. This is the backbreaker right here. Ball at the 27, 3rd and 8. And there's Cumbie stepping in, and he's off and gone 82 yards to secure the Kentucky win 27-17. But as we go to the highlights, and again, I've got to talk about the 32 minutes of scoreless football, 17 straight points. During that reign, 5 punts, a change of possession, 1 interception. Tim Kish, Gerry DiNardo have to be pleased with the overall improvement defensively. Going inside the numbers, as you can see, Indiana with the total offense lead. Kentucky, though, was perfect in the red zone, and that's something Indiana will have to work on in practice this week. Only 1 of 4 Saturday night. There's the scoreless minutes. What a night for the young freshman from Houston, Texas. 163 yards. Courtney Roby over 100 yards catching. And Gibran, his second consecutive game, over 200 yards, 234 yards. So, as Gerry DiNardo was saying post-game, things to work on, a long way to go. But a foundation block laid in Lexington Saturday night. Positives to build on as the Hoosiers now return home Saturday to host unbeaten Central Michigan. You know, it's been said that the will to win is not enough, but the will to prepare to win is the greatest thing on earth. Getting themselves ready to play and showing enough leadership qualities in Gerry DiNardo's football camp to lead this 2002 club. Seniors Chris Steelman and Enoch DeMar. Both were chosen right before the start of the season as captains of this Indiana squad. Chosen by their peers, a couple of guys who have endured to date in their respective careers. 2 student athletes who have mastered the 4 basic characteristics that are vital to team leadership: habits, enthusiasm, responsibility, and discipline. Attributes that have helped cornerstone Coach DiNardo's approach to play this fall. For both, a welcomed responsibility to lead. And through the early part of this 2002 season, lead they have.
Just a big honor, you know. Me and Enoch are now a part of a prestige or a tradition now that's pretty tight. You know, it's a great feeling. And I'm glad my teammates can look up to me and Enoch can see us as good leaders. And, you know, we're going to be the best leaders we can. And, you know, today was just a building, you know, a stepping block. You know, next week will be another one. Just like Coach said, you know, this is just one step at the top of the mountain. So we'll see what happens from here.
Chris moved to the defensive line that gave the unit a personality, as Coach DiNardo labeled it. The Troy, Ohio native shared the honor of outstanding performance by a senior for the 2002 spring practice. He began his IU career, if you might recall, at tight end in 1999. 2 years ago, he spent his season on the defensive line and played in 11 games and recorded 7 tackles. Last year, he earned all Big Ten honorable mention back at the tight end spot. Steelman wasted little time in leading by example. In the William & Mary opener, he recorded 4.5 tackles for loss, a sack, and a recovered fumble in the Hoosier season-opening win. For Enoch DeMar out of Indianapolis Tech High School, he draws his own tough standards for play, helping to anchor an experienced interior front that now has made 25 consecutive starts together. For Enoch, the Hoosier Iron Man, his start against Kentucky Saturday night was his 36th in a row, showing and proving his durability as one of the best offensive linemen in the Big Ten. Enoch, by the way, is on both the Outland Trophy and All-America watch lists the rest of the fall. You know, it was no surprise that the 5th-year senior shared the honor of outstanding performance by a senior coming out of the spring. He shared it with Chris Steelman.
The thing is that you can't go out here and do something that you haven't been doing. You know, you can't go out here and start yelling. You know, that's not my role on the team. That's not, I guess, how guys look at me, and I'm not going to change who I am and how I lead just because I've been named the captain. You know, I'm going to go out here, say the things I got to say. You know, when something needs to be said, I'll say it. You know, if something doesn't need to be said, then I won't say it and let it work itself out. But, you know, but it's great. It's a great honor. It feels good that, you know, that my teammates view me as a leader.
Enoch has that trait of saying something that people and teammates alike validate instantly what he's saying. Another attribute as a senior leader in the camp of Gerry DiNardo. You know, if you play football for Gerry DiNardo, a senior must be a leader. And any successful football team is more than the sum total of its individual parts. Habits, enthusiasm, responsibility, discipline. Indiana captains Chris Steelman and Enoch DeMar are covering all the bases. Well, Jerry, certainly dividends being paid on the part of those two young men, and as we suggested in the piece, leaders by example and doing the job off the field as well. And, you know, you go back to last spring when you first came in, you really saw, you and your staff, the kind of young men that Dielman and Enoch are.
Two terrific guys that have really done everything they can since January 8th to try to make this work. And Joe, it's hard for young people to go through change like they're going through, especially hard for seniors. I always think it's hardest on the seniors. What an honor, though, to be elected captain by your teammates, which both Enoch and Chris alluded to. And the other interesting thing watching the piece was Enoch saying he's just going to be himself. And every year you have to remind the captains, now don't change. They voted for you because of the way you act. Now, you don't have to come out all of a sudden and be a rah-rah guy.
Right,
if you weren't. If you are a rah-rah guy, continue to be one. But if you're a low-key guy, and so it's a pretty serious principle in leadership. But these two guys have been terrific, and they have provided a lot of leadership.
And, you know, collectively, when they gather as a team, they can say something, the two of them, to the team. And, of course, you're talking to seniors, you're talking to juniors, you're talking to sophomores. The number of freshmen. Jerry, what's the biggest thing you've seen adjustment-wise for a kid? John Pinozzo, he's not even 18 years old yet. He's got 3 touchdown passes. What's the big transition key from prep, you know, football on the high school level to Division I Big Ten football?
I think the first thing that comes to my mind, Joe, is the speed. The speed of the game is so much different. When your college guys come back from playing in the NFL, if you ask them the biggest difference, they'll tell you the speed. The other thing is, obviously, they're much more independent. They're on their own all during the day. They've got to grow up and be mature. Otherwise, they won't be able to handle the academic side, the social side, and the football side. But the first thing that always comes to mind is the difference in speed when you step up a level.
Well, Dielman and Enoch DeMar, Chris and Enoch doing the job as Indiana captains here this season of 2002. Stick with us when we come. We're going to sift through Indiana football history as, well, we saw last week through the Bo McMillan area, now into the 50s and 60s with names like Skoronsky and Bamba and Nowatzki and some of those guys. We'll be back with Indiana football with Gerry DiNardo right after these messages.
During the 1950s, several Hoosiers had outstanding careers. Lou DiCilli led the Hoosiers to a 20-7 victory over Notre Dame in what would be the last time the Fighting Irish would play in Bloomington. Bob Skoronsky captained the 1954 team and later starred for 5 NFL championships for the Green Bay Packers. Brad Bamba was named All-American in 1956. Ted Ackerman and Mike Raybould were named All-Americans in 1958. Ted Karras and Davey Witzel had outstanding careers at IU and later started for the 1963 NFL champion Chicago Bears. In 1960, Indiana moved into the new Memorial Stadium on 17th Street. In 1962, All-American Marv Woodson returned an interception for a touchdown to lead the Hoosiers to a 12-7 win over Purdue. All-American fullback Tom Nowatzki helped the Hoosiers by leading the Big Ten in rushing. Nowatzki later had a stellar NFL career with the Baltimore Colts and scored a touchdown for the Colts in their win in Super Bowl V. Coach John Pont arrived at Indiana in 1965 and 2 years later completed the most remarkable turnaround in the history of college football. Pont's first 2 IU teams went 2-8 and 1-8-1 in 1965 and 1966. The stage was set for the most memorable season in IU history.
Well, Jerry, at that point in the season, 3 games in with Central Michigan Saturday as the Hoosiers return home to Memorial Stadium. Don't forget the 4 o'clock kick time. But we've come to that point in the season where some fans now have emailed us, and we thought we'd throw a couple of questions your way. And we want to remind Indiana fans, all you have to do is just go to the website, iuhoosiers.com, and click on the email site. Eleanor from Indianapolis, Jerry, I love the new uniforms. They're very classy. Will we be seeing any different combinations later in the year?
Not this year, Joe, I wouldn't think. The uniforms, we've gotten rave reviews. I think people really enjoy the classic look, the very simple look. Eleanor talks about different combinations. I think around the country you'll see wear 2 crimson or change color of a helmet or something. But this year, we're excited about what we're wearing, and that's what it'll look like the rest of the year.
Okay, Eleanor, thanks for the question. Jerry Michael from Gary, Indiana, with the success you've had in turning around the football programs at Vandy and LSU, are you following a similar game plan for building Indiana into a winning program?
There's a lot of similarities. I would start with our staff. We work very, very hard trying to get the team ready for the games, obviously. We probably work on recruiting much more than people really realize. We try to do different things in recruiting than a lot of other staffs, and so that's been similar here as it was at Vanderbilt and at LSU. And attention to detail, Joe, how we practice, how we interact with our team, how they behave themselves, what we call our team culture. There's a lot of similarities. It's a blueprint we have a lot of confidence in. And when you struggle sometimes, you have to remember this, and you have to stay firm and stay the course.
And I think that really leads back to what we said right at the top of the show this week, Coach. We talk about patience, and we talk about consistency. And for now, here early season, before the Big Ten and the trip to Ohio State a week from Saturday, that's pretty much got to be followed almost to the script, almost to the letter.
No question. We've just got to stay firm. We know what we're doing. We've got a plan. We're going to follow the plan. After a great win, we're going to come back and go to work. We're going to forget about the win. Right. After a tough loss, we're going to come back to work, and we're going to forget about the tough loss. That's part of the plan. It's part of a consistent approach that we really believe in.
Well, a couple of long trips, and it's glad to be back home. And again, we'd love to see you on Saturday, 4 o'clock against Central Michigan. That'll do it for this week. For the coach and the coaching staff, Joe Smith, Gerry DiNardo, we'll see you next week on Indiana Football with Gerry DiNardo. Up top, Hampton to Glenn Johnson, good for 32 yards. And this comes with a score 17-0. Indiana outscored in the first quarter games this year, 68-26. Good coverage here as Brad Banks will go downfield looking for the bomb, and look at the twin coverage there as Damian Jones and Buster Larkins in on the coverage. Ryan Hamry's going to punt here, unfortunately out of the end zone. Indiana 4th and 10 from their own 8-yard line. And this ball will come down, and Indiana's going to get nailed on an illegal block here, and that will give Iowa great field position and 1st and 10 at the Hoosier 20. But with what was bad, here's some good right here as Grieving coughs up the football. That was Buster Larkins that caused the fumble, and recovered by Herman Fowler, the Kokomo native, his first career fumble recovery. 17-0. We're in the second quarter, and I think one of the better scoring drive opportunities anyway for Indiana. Here's Brian Lewis, 11 yards, first down. If you can see the top of the screen, Iowa's player there is not even on sides. The play is run. This is a little trick play they put in this week. And Brian Lewis rushing for 16 yards. However, a penalty was called on Indiana for illegal formation, 5 yards, so it was ruled a no play. So back to 2nd down and 12 at the Hoosier 24, and right back to the ground game. And Brian did a good job running the football in the first half, breaks a couple of tackles and rushes for 29 yards. That was the longest run, by the way, allowed by the Hawkeyes this year. 4th and 1, Indiana has to go for it here, trailing 17-0, and the rush for 1 yard complete, and the chains move down the field. 3rd and 4 right now from the Iowa 31-yard line. Tyke Spencer getting into the offense, catching the aerial for Jabron Hamden, a 9-yard catch and a first down, setting up a 2nd and 4 on our next play here. Jabron back from the Iowa 16-yard line over the middle, and this will set up a 1st and goal. Glenn Johnson for 9 yards. However, it seemed on Saturday the shorter the field, the tougher it got for Indiana offensively. And as we can see, 0 for 2 in red zone scoring, and 3rd down conversion not much better. But Brian Lewis against the top-rated team against the rush, averaging almost 6.5 yards a carry as we get ready to roll to second half action. And the Hoosiers blank for the first time all year in the opening half, 17-0. We pick up action 3rd down and 5. This is Indiana's first possession. Jabron Hamden here, complete to Courtney Roby, who had a big second half, 18 yards there and a first down. 1st down and 10 from the Hoosier 42, again 17-0. First possession of the second half, 3rd quarter action. Hamden flushed out, rolls and throws and finds Glenn Johnson for 13. Back to the ground game now. As we told you at halftime, Brian Lewis had 64 yards, and he gets 14 more yards of it here before he's finally drugged down from behind in the secondary by G.J. Johnson. Good for a first down, and this led to Brian Robertson's field goal attempt. from the 45-yard line, and Brian has been pepper hot. 4 for 4 from beyond 40, and he's got a string going right now, and the Hoosiers get on the board 17-3. We pick up action here, first down and 10. Iowa with the football, and Fred Russell, who's already scored 2 touchdowns, runs into a lot of Crimson, led by Buster Larkins and Hernandez Jones. The Hoosiers late in the third trying to tighten things now. Jabron Hamden up top, good catch. Courtney Roby shakes loose along the sidelines, 25 yards and a first down. Here's a key 3rd and 2 that kept the drive alive late in the third from the Hoosier 48-yard line. Jabron again up over the top, and Courtney Roby for 15 yards to the Iowa 37 and the first down. And again, pretty good balance of pass and run as Brian Lewis back to the ground, and Brian with 13 yards as we near the end of the third quarter. Indiana still on the attack, trailing 17-3. And Hamden flushed out, will go to his tight end, and that is Stephen Anthony, and good for 14 yards. And again, Indiana first down and goal from the 7, but Ryan Robertson has to be called on, and he has now nailed his last 5 consecutively, and he's now 7 of 10 on the year, and that 23-yarder, 17-6. But boy, this really hurts. Here's Brian Robertson kicking off, and you see C.J. Jones, who broke one last week against Michigan State. He's a fine return man, 50 yards. And just after Indiana scratched back into the ballgame, Shane Mote finally made the stop there. But from bad to good, as Banks trying to go for a quick 6 here over the middle, the ball's deflected, bounced around, and there's Damian Jones, his second pick of the year. But Indiana cannot move with the football offensively, as you see Jones moving it back upfield. Gave Indiana decent field position, but again, the offense just stymied by the Iowa defense. Indiana was 3 and out. Here's the big play, though. And broken coverage here, and this is going to happen once in a while. Maurice Brown shook loose down the sidelines, 65 yards. And Jabron, 335 yards passing. Courtney Roby caught 9 balls in the second half for 175 yards. And Iowa wins it 24-8, ending the Hoosiers' 6-game home winning streak. Post-game, Coach Gerry DiNardo.
I thought our play was really sloppy, especially in the beginning. I did think that our defense, after not getting off to a good start, really came back and played hard. I was happy to see that. I thought our offense was awful. I don't care what the stats say. The stats are for losers. And, you know, we just, you can't throw picks. You can't drop footballs and those kind of things. So we got what we deserved. Iowa played better. They're a better team than we are. And so... but we'll move on. We'll press on. We need to get ready. Much like I told them last week, we're going to come back Sunday after a big win or a disappointing loss and move on. It gets tougher from this point on because you know, you got a chance to have a somewhat of a decent and successful year, and I think our guys are in that position maybe for the first time. And what the world says is you had some success last week, so back off. And what a champion says is I had some success last week, press on. And we have to press on. And we didn't press on today, but next week's another week.
What defines excellence? It's all about learning.
There are no limitations to the things you can do here. There are many things that join us together, even though every one of us is unique.
The teachers have been incredibly supportive.
Their excitement and love for their subject, you know, just spills over into the classroom.
It's a challenge, but you can do it.
There's just not a place better in the country.
Indiana University.
Excellent.
We don't doubt the billions. It's the serve part we have trouble with. It's real.
Steak and Shake, famous for steak burgers.
At Steak and Shake, we're a restaurant. I do the waiting. On you. There's more than one way to make a shake. And we admit, their way is more efficient. But when was the last time you sipped a shake and said, That tastes efficient.
Steak and Shake, famous for steak burgers.
Today I got the letter in the mail that said that I had a full scholarship to IU, and out-of-state school for me was the best day I remember. I get to train with the coach I wanted to, train with a team that was very supportive, fun-loving, great to be with. I was so happy and thankful that I could go to IU. I would love to come back and help contribute to other athletes.
Make a difference in the life of an Indiana University student-athlete. Call the Varsity Club today at 855-0866.
Lee Corso became the IU head football coach in 1973. Lee brought excitement and flair to Indiana along with a burning passion to beat Purdue. His repeat victories in the Old Oaken Bucket game was a first for an IU coach since Bo McMillan. In 1973, defensive back Quinn Buckner led the Hoosiers in pass interceptions 6 months after leading the Hoosier basketball team to the Final Four. In 1976, Buckner was the captain of Indiana's undefeated NCAA basketball champions. In 1976, Mike Harkrader became the first freshman in the history of the Big Ten to rush for over 1,000 yards in a season. The Hoosiers of the late 70s were led defensively by All-American linebacker Joe Norman. Norman ranks first on the all-time list for career tackles at IU. In addition, Norman holds the record for most tackles in a single game and the mark for most tackles in a season. In 1976 and 1977, the Hoosiers finished 3rd and 4th in the Big Ten in successive years. Included were 2 wins over Washington and a 24-21 win over the LSU Tigers. David Freud's last-second field goal helped propel IU to the second of 4 consecutive victories over the Iowa Hawkeyes. Quarterback Scott Arnett led the Hoosiers to victories over Purdue in back-to-back years in 1976 and 1977. In 1979, quarterback Tim Clifford led the Hoosiers to a 30-26 win over the Iowa Hawkeyes in the season opener. The Hoosiers roared back from a 26-3 halftime deficit and won the game on a touchdown pass from Clifford to Lonnie Johnson. This victory set the stage for the rest of a memorable campaign. Led by defensive captains Terry Talon and Brent Tisdale, IU raced to a 4-1 start with wins over Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and Wisconsin. All-American defensive back Tim Wilbur intercepted 3 passes to lead Indiana to a 45-14 rout over Illinois in Champaign. This victory clinched a berth in the Holiday Bowl against undefeated Brigham Young. In a game that produced 8 lead changes and almost 900 yards of combined total offense, the Hoosiers struck first on a 38-yard touchdown pass from quarterback Tim Clifford to tight end Bob Stevenson. 2 Clifford touchdown runs gave the Hoosiers a 21-17 halftime lead. After a BYU score, Mike Harkrader's touchdown run put the Hoosiers back in front 28-24. Kevin Kellogg connected on a 26-yard field goal to stretch the Hoosier advantage to 31-24. However, BYU scored the next 13 points and took a 37-31 lead with 6 minutes to play. It was here that the amazing Tim Wilbur worked his return magic once again. Wilbur returned a BYU punt 62 yards for a touchdown, and Kevin Kellogg's extra point put the Hoosiers back in front 38-37. The IU defense held the Cougars, and a missed BYU field goal with 11 seconds to play gave the Hoosiers the Holiday Bowl championship. Indiana finished the season 8-4 and was ranked 16th in the nation in the final polls. Tim Clifford was named the most valuable player in the Big Ten for the 1979 season. Tim Wilbur ended his Indiana career as IU's all-time interception leader with 19 and leads all IU players with 6 returns for touchdowns. Mike Harkrader ended his career a year later and is ranked 4th on the IU all-time rushing list. Following another winning season in 1980, the Lee Corso era closed out with another set of back-to-back victories over Purdue in 1981 and 1982. Future Dallas Cowboy quarterback Babe Laufenberg led the Hoosiers to consecutive bucket wins. In Lee Corso's final game at IU, Mark Suter sacked Purdue quarterback Scott Campbell on the final play of the game to give the Hoosiers a 13-7 win in West Lafayette.
It's easy to stay in touch with your favorite Indiana University team. For the latest information on your Indiana Hoosiers, visit IUHoosiers.com. IUHoosiers.com is your one-stop shop for merchandise, game schedules, press releases, and ticket information for all of Indiana's 24 varsity sports. You can call us toll-free 866-IU-SPORTS for tickets, game information, and catalog merchandise. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you at the next game.
Which came first, the steak burger or the customer? I can't make the steak burger until the customer orders it. And yet, paradoxically, if there was no steak burger, what brought the customer here in the first place?
Steak burgers. They order them. He cooks them. And I serve them.
Steak and Shake, famous for steak burgers.
Hi, I'm Ken Beckley, President and CEO of your Indiana University Alumni Association. The Alumni Association is a paid membership organization that provides programs and services for our university and for all the alumni of our 8 IU campuses. We have exclusive benefits for our members, such as an online career service and a great alumni magazine. Check out the benefits of membership on our website, then join us. IU alumni, we're the pride of Indiana.
Hoosier fans, get all your cream and crimson apparel featuring the Block IU logo at the Varsity Shop, the official store for IU athletics. We have 2 locations in Bloomington, at the corner of Kirkwood and Indiana and in Assembly Hall. Buy your cream and crimson apparel at the Varsity Shop and help support the athletic programs at IU. Plus, you can still get all of the Big Ten Championship and Final Four apparel at the Varsity Shop. Shop online at IUHoosiers.com or call the store at 1-866-IU-SPORTS. The IU Varsity Shop, the official store for IU athletics.
Welcome back, everyone, to Indiana football with Gerry DiNardo. Illinois and Champaign coming up Saturday, and then the trek to Evanston and the Northwestern Wildcats, Jerry, the next 2 weeks as the Hoosiers go back on the road as we continue along in the Big Ten. And we continue along with a lot of questions we've been receiving as the season has progressed, Jerry, on Ask the Coach. And we have one from Charlotte from Du Bois County down in Jasper, Indiana. Coach, my son is a freshman high school football player who wants to play college football. What are the time commitments that a college gridder must go through every week of the season? Good question.
A very good question. It's actually regulated by the NCAA, Joe. It never used to be. Way back when, you could keep them forever. But there's a 20-hour rule during the season. You cannot have a player for more than 20 hours. The game counts for 3. So basically, you have 17 hours to get your team ready. You have to give them 1 day off. So really, a typical schedule, this may be the best way to break it down. Our guys will come in on Sunday. We'll watch the previous tape. We'll practice, and that's a 2 or 3 hour proposition. Monday, our guys have the entire day off, unless they're injured and need treatment. Right. Tuesday, basically, their commitment is 3 to 7. Wednesday, basically, their commitment is 3 to 7. Thursday, we back off a little bit. Probably the best way is 3 to 6, say. Friday, we usually meet for a couple hours, and then, as I say, the game counts for 3 hours. That's the time that you can work. Their time commitment is actually more than that. I would say it's a full-time job is probably the best way to describe it.
No question about that. And that, obviously, too, with the tutoring that the student-athletes get to and the athletics and the academics, that's why they're here playing football, obviously. And we thank Charlotte for that letter. Jerry, we have another one from John from up in northern Indiana, in Dyer. Coach DiNardo, we seem to be running a lot of screens this year. Is this an effort to slow down the blitzes of the defenses we play?
John, it's always an effort to slow down the rushes. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons you call a screen pass. So when we call it that, obviously, is one of the reasons. We haven't, I guess I would say to him, I don't think we've run all that many. Sometimes I think we should run more. Sometimes I think we should run less. We haven't had a lot of success with our screens. But in general, Joe, reason to run a screen is to slow down the rush.
You know, one thing while we're talking about screens, and I talked to Gibran about it earlier in the week, I didn't know if it was a lateral pass or a screen with Brian Lewis. It has been successful in 2 or 3 games. Brian, you explain it.
Well, it's designed as a forward pass. So you're talking about the check down route. Yeah, it's designed as a forward pass. But there's been times when it has been a lateral, and that's a pretty significant issue, because if that ball would not be caught, it would be a fumble. It wouldn't be an incomplete pass. So you want your tailback to be ahead of the quarterback when he throws it.
All right. So, and again, IUHoosiers.com. Ask the coach. Click on, and well, as I mentioned, the Hoosiers back on the road the next couple of weeks, and well, for Coach Gerry and the coaching staff and the Hoosiers, Joe Smith, have yourselves a great week, and we'll see you next week, post Illinois, with more football with Gerry DiNardo.